And welcome everyone to Beth Tikvah Women's Pre-Hanukkah program. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. We have a very wonderful evening planned for you. We have cooking demonstrations, we have candle lighting, we're going to be singing Hanukkah songs, we're going to learn about the history of Hanukkah. So sit back and relax, and we're going to have a great program. Before we start, I'd just like to introduce Doris, our Executive Director of Beth Tikvah Synagogue, and she's just going to go over a few things on regards to Zoom. Thank you.
Hi, welcome everyone. This is just a few tips for this evening's Zoom program. First of all, you're all muted, and you're going to be staying muted until the very end, where you'll have an opportunity to chat with each other. We have a number of presenters who will be presenting to you this evening. If you have questions, you can direct them to me. So if you're not familiar with chat, if you click on the chat button on your screen, you'll see that a lot of names come up. And on the very bottom, often it will say everyone. If you click on the arrow, people's names will come up, but there's also a space that says send chat to. If everyone can find that, if you'd like to. If you type in my name, Doris, then you can click on my name and you can send me questions for this evening's presenters. When Marcia is completed her cooking demonstration, she will take questions after the demonstration. You can send those questions to me or to Marcia directly if you're comfortable with that. So if you say, no, I want to ask Marilyn this question, or Marcia, or Trudy, you can send them questions. If we miss a question, we will answer you towards the end of the meeting. I hope that is fairly clear to all of you. Adjust your cameras so we can see your beautiful faces and nobody's forehead or chin. Our speakers today will be sharing their screens with you. And as well, we will be sharing videos. There may be a slight pause in between video or sharing screen. Just be patient with us as we bring up another screen or another video. And I think that's it for now. So have a wonderful evening and see you soon.
Thank you, Doris. So I'd like to again welcome everyone this evening. We have people here from different shuls in Toronto, Beth Sedek, Beth David, and we have from New York and all over. And it's wonderful. At the moment, we have 86 participants, and we're expecting some more. And so we're going to start out. I'm going to actually introduce my mom. Is going to tell us a little bit about Torah Fund.
Okay. Thank you for coming to Beth Tikvah Women's first virtual Hanukkah program. Do you know that Beth Tikvah Women is part of Women's League for Conservative Judaism? Women's League is the umbrella organization for conservative sisterhoods throughout North America, and Torah Fund is the dedicated tzedakah for Women's League. The name Torah Fund does not mean we collect money for Torahs. All the money raised goes to help students with scholarships and programs at our 5 conservative seminaries around the world. The Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, where Rabbi Grover studied, the Ziegler Institute of Rabbinic Studies in Los Angeles, where Rabbi Sachs studied, the Schechter Institute in Jerusalem, the Seminario Rabbinico in Buenos Aires, and Zacharias Frankel Rabbinical College in Potsdam, Germany. All these schools offer excellent formal and informal education to our future leaders of the conservative movement, our rabbis, cantors, Jewish educators, chaplains, community workers, and lay leaders. Most seminary students cannot afford this education on their own. The scholarships and programs funded by Torah Fund help them make ends meet. Our BTW members and friends can support Torah Fund in a number of ways. An easy way is to buy Torah Fund cards for all occasions, like bereavements, get well, muzzle tough, new baby, etc. You can order an assortment of Torah Fund cards to mail yourself, or call me and I will mail these cards. Another way is through direct donations at higher levels. All donations over $180 are tax receivable and will receive a beautiful pin as a gift. Each year, Torah Fund adopts a different theme. And this year, our theme and our pin is Biyachad, together. So fitting for these unprecedented times when we all need to be together. Our need to be together is so great, even if only on Zoom. So please remember Torah Fund for all your tzedakah needs. Thank you, Fran Kane.
Thank you, Mom. That was wonderful. We are now going to hear from Trudy Sassoon, who's going to give us a little bit of a background on Hanukkah, the history of Hanukkah, and lots more. Unmute, Trudy. You have to unmute.
There we go. Thank you, Adele. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share with you several known and perhaps a few unknown facts about Hanukkah. Hanukkah, Chag HaUrim, the Festival of Lights, occurs on 25 Kislev. This year, we light the first candle on the evening of Thursday, December 10, and add one candle each evening until all 8 are lit on the evening of Thursday, December 17. Hanukkah is not mentioned in the Torah. The events of Hanukkah happened after the Torah was written. It is mentioned in the book of Maccabees as part of the Apocrypha. In strictly religious terms, Hanukkah is a relatively minor holiday, but has attained great cultural significance among Jews around the world. There are many ways to spell Hanukkah in the English language. Whichever spelling you choose is the correct way. The festival is celebrated primarily with the lighting of the Hanukkah menorah, which is called a Chanukiah, eating traditional foods, playing games, giving Hanukkah gelt, and exchanging gifts. Why do we celebrate for 8 days? Hanukkah is celebrated as a festival of freedom, taking its shape and form after a military victory starting in 167 BCE. Our most familiar story tells us of Antiochus Epiphanes IV, the Greek Hellenistic king who occupied Judea and attempted to eradicate the Jewish culture, forcing the Jews to abandon all of their religious observances and customs. They were forced to erect altars and shrines to Greek gods, to erect a gigantic statue of Zeus at the altar of the Holy Second Temple. Disobedience meant instant death. Thousands were massacred. Further desecration in the temple was the sacrificing of figs. After killing an agent of the king who was forcing him to bow down to Zeus, Mattathias, the high priest, and his 5 sons fled to the hills and organized an army to fight against the Syrian Greeks. Judah Maccabee, Mattathias' son, succeeded his father in leading this Maccabean revolt. After a 3-year battle of mostly guerrilla warfare, Judah Maccabee and his followers successfully drove the Syrian Greeks out of Jerusalem in 165 BCE. All statues were removed and the temple was thoroughly cleansed. On the 25th day of Kislev, the temple was rededicated and its menorah lit, using the 1 day's worth of pure consecrated olive oil, which was found. Miraculously, this oil continued to flicker for 8 days. It is for this miracle that we celebrate and light candles on the Chanukiah for 8 days annually. Sorry. The following episode was a favorite theme of many artists. You've probably noticed that Hanukkah foods are all dairy and fried, somewhat unusual for a Jewish holiday. There is good reason. When a Jewish village was under siege and succumbing to starvation, a young widow, Yehudit, Judith, went to meet Holofernes, commander of the Greeks under King Nebuchadnezzar, pretending to give him valuable information on how and when to take down the village. On the day before the impending attack, Judith showed up with a victory gift of salty cheese and lots of wine. Expecting an easy battle the following day, the general lustily dug into the cheese and chased it with drink after drink of the strong wine. After collapsing into a drunken stupor, Judith took his sword and beheaded him, thus saving her village and the Jewish people. So to honor Judith, we eat cheese and dairy foods at Hanukkah. We also celebrate by eating fried foods such as latkes and donuts to honor the miracle of the oil in the temple. Potatoes became the popular choice for latkes in Jewish homes at Hanukkah in the 19th century Eastern Europe in order to avoid frying the cheese in chicken fat. There are many variations of latkes: zucchini, cheese, and corn, sweet potato, apple, pineapple fritters, tofu latkes too. Israeli sufganiyot, donuts with a jam filling, Israeli pashtida, fried potato kugel, and Turkish vermuelos are traditional among Sephardic Jews. Many Jews like kugel, cheesecake, or rugelach that all share one ingredient, cheese. And we mustn't forget the blue and white icing decorated dreidel-shaped cookies. The following are customs that you may not be aware of. Hanukkah is a relatively minor holiday. Work is not forbidden. Your household can light one Chanukiah or many at the same time. Men, women, and children are all encouraged to light the candles. Unlike Shabbat candles, the festive Hanukkah candles are not to be used for lighting up the room. The woman of the household is encouraged to relax and enjoy the flaming candles. The custom of giving Hanukkah gelt has evolved into the exchanging of Hanukkah gifts in some societies. Hanukkah is known for its lively games, the most familiar being dreidel. In order for the Jews to disguise their continued study of Torah, they devised ways to keep from being discovered during those times. They played card games, but mostly dreidel, a game which they would always have ready just in case they were approached by a Greek official. As we are all aware, it is important for us to educate and involve our children and grandchildren in Hanukkah preparations. Talk to them, read stories, teach them our history, do crafts, make a Chanukiah, dreidels, bake cookies, plan and prepare a special Hanukkah meal, and eat all of the special treats. Hag Sameach. Marilyn Cohn will now re-educate us on the lighting of the Hanukkah candles.
Hi, everyone. It's my pleasure to give you all a refresher course on lighting the Hanukkah candles. That is, what prayers to say, where, when, and how to say them. I'd also like to invite you to grab your own Chanukiah and some candles so you can practice along with me. Notice I didn't call it a menorah. The menorah is the traditional 7-branched candelabra that was used in the ancient temple. It's been a symbol of Judaism since ancient times and is the emblem on the coat of arms of the State of Israel and also the logo of the Women's League for Conservative Judaism. The candelabra we light on Hanukkah is called a Chanukiah and has 8 branches with one extra one called the shamash or helper candle. and the shamash is used to light all the other candles. You should know that the custom of lighting the Chanukah candles was the subject of a heated debate during the Talmudic times. Our two great sages, Hillel and Shammai, debated how to put the candles in the Chanukiah and then how to light them. Shammai argued that we should start with 8 candles and light one less each night until the last night where there would only be one, because that is what would have happened with the miracle of the oil burning for 8 nights. The light would have become smaller and smaller each night. Hillel, on the other hand, argued that by starting with 1 candle on the first night and then adding a candle each of the nights following, we express the miracle of the lights that burned for 8 days. And by extension, we add more light to our world each day on both a physical and spiritual level. The rabbis call it Ma'alim Bakodesh. We increase in holiness. The light from our candles brings hope and reminds us to continue to shine hope, faith, and good deeds into the darkest corners of our world. First of all, we should know where we place our Chanukiah. Originally, we were commanded to place it outside our homes where we could fulfill the mitzvah of publicizing the miracle. In Hebrew, it's called Mefarsim et Hanes. In times when it was dangerous to do so, people would light it inside the home, near the doorway across from the mezuzah. Today, it's customary to publicly declare our pride and our heritage by placing our Chanukiah in a window where the candles can clearly be seen. We do this in the evening, about a half hour after sunset, or when 3 stars are in the sky. On Chanukah, I will raise the blinds, but tonight they're closed because of the reflection. So as we know, Hillel's view won the day, but the rules for lighting get a bit more complicated. We put the candles in starting from the right side and add another candle each night till all 8 are seen. But then we light them starting from the left side, or the newest candle first. It's like we're greeting the newest candle of the day because it's our special guest. Just remember, light from the left. Like all other brachot, we say or sing the bracha, or the blessing, first, and then we do the mitzvah, like the motzi, or washing your hands. The only exception is the Shabbat candles, because saying the bracha brings in Shabbat, and we're not supposed to light fire on Shabbat once the bracha is said. So we actually light first, cover our eyes, say the Shabbat bracha, then uncover them and look at the candles. Needless to say, when we have to light the Chanukiah on Friday night, we're going to do it before we light the Shabbat candles. Now let's practice lighting the candles. We can pretend we're lighting, let's say, on the 3rd night. Tonight, I'm using my favorite Chanukiah that my husband Bob and I purchased on a trip to Mexico to give to my in-laws as a gift, and which we subsequently inherited. It's a beautiful silver Chanukiah, which has a cute little picture, which is mostly decorative, the shamash, which is separate, and 8 oil receptacles. Because it uses oil, it's a bit tricky to light. I'm using olive oil. This is my olive oil, kosher olive oil, but you can use any kosher oil. I fill the pitcher with oil and fill the shamash receptacle. Oops, there's too much. I could do them all like this, but for speed's sake, I think I'll just do using the bottle, and I'll fill 3, as we're pretending it's 3 nights. Excuse me. So I now insert a wick into a small circle. That's a cork and a wick. I stick it into the hole in the cork, and the cork's going to float on top of the oil and just sit there. As you see, I'll do that with 3, and of course the shamash. Now, obviously, I can't actually light the wicks using the shamash because the oil would spill out. So I have to use a candle. And that's how we light it. The candles or wicks have to burn for a minimum of 30 minutes. And I timed these little wicks and they actually burn for a whole hour. Of course, candles are perfectly fine and a lot easier to use. So I first light the candle. And then the shamash. Okay. And then they're going to sing the blessings and light the rest of the candles after we sing. Now, the traditional Chanukah candle lighting service consists of saying all three blessings on the first night, and first two blessings on the second and all the subsequent nights. And you'll find all the blessings in the Hanukkah booklet that we've given you in Hebrew, the transliteration, and the translation. Most Sidurim also have the blessings, or you can always consult Rabbi Google. Let's sing together. I'll say Hashem because it's not really Hanukkah yet. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim lavoteinu bayamim ahem bazman hazeh. And now we light, starting from the left side. And we can blow out this candle. Since it's not the real thing, let's just practice singing the third blessing, the Hashechianu, that we will only sing on the first night. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, shehechianu, v'kiyamanu, v'higianu, lazman hazeh. Very good. I hope you joined along with me. Now, once we've lit our candles, it's customary to sing some songs. Some sing Hanerot Halalu, a song about how we light these candles to honor and remember the triumphs and miracles that are of our ancestors in days gone by. You might know this version. Hanerot halalu anu madlikin, Hanerot halalu anu madlikin, al hanisim ve'al haniflaot, ve'al hatishuot, ve'al hamilchamot, she'asita lavotenu, she'asita lavotenu, bayamim hahem, bayamim hahem, bayamim hahem bazman hazeh. You can always sing Ma'osur. Ma'osur Yeshuati lechana el shabeach, tikon beit tefilati v'sham toda nizabeach, le'etachin matbeach, mitzarham nobeach, azeg mor b'shir mizmor, Chanukah tal mizbeach, azeg mor b'shir mizmor, Chanukah tal mizbeach. There are so many Hanukkah songs. Just go to Google and especially YouTube to hear them. Don't miss the funny ones, like the one that Sadler sings. It's called the Adam Sadler Hanukkah song, or the Maccabees have a great song, and I've included some links to in our complimentary booklet for you. There's a wonderful rendition of Hanerot Halalu with a jazz band. So now you have most of the Hanukkah basics. Even if you can't remember everything or can't remember a tune, it's okay to read the transliteration and say the brachot. Just enjoy your celebration with your family or friends, even if it's on Zoom. That's the most important thing of all. Connect with your family or friends and enjoy our meaningful customs, enjoyable songs, history, and most of all, delicious food. But now we're going to offer you a unique recipe for Hanukkah that you probably have not seen before. I'd like to introduce you to Marcia Rosen, our guest culinary expert for tonight. Marcia Rosen has been a member of Beth Tikvah since 1968. She and her husband Fred raised their 4 children there. Over the years, Marcia has been involved with many aspects of the synagogue, sisterhood president, synagogue board and executive, the choir, currently musica chair, and many happy hours spent in the sisterhood kitchen preparing food for various events, the cookbook editor, and much more. Needless to say, the shul has been a gem in the Rosen crown of meaningful activities. Marcia retired as a registered dietitian after her husband Fred retired from his practice of endocrinology. Marcia's career included a private practice, working in long-term care, and finishing her career in home care. All aspects of her working life were extremely satisfying and meaningful. The Rosens are a foodie family, and in the past normal, would spend good times around the dining room table or in the kitchen at the cottage, comparing notes or poking fun at someone's latest culinary blunder. Marcia says, our 3 sons and their spouses are all accomplished in various ways, but tonight I will shep nachas from daughter Amy Rosen. Amy is a food and travel journalist, cookbook author, 5 and counting, the latest being Kosher Style, and owner of Rosen's Cinnamon Buns and Rosen's Cinnamon Bun and Babka Spreads. Fred and Marcia are the very proud grandparents of 6 grandchildren. Marcia is delighted to join you this evening. Take it away, Marcia.
Hi everybody, happy almost Hanukkah to you. It's wonderful to be joining you together, and I'm happy to say that we're going to be doing one recipe in full tonight and chatting about a couple of other recipes. You've also received in your package a number of other recipes designed around Hanukkah for you to try at your leisure, but we'll have some chatting time as we go through this. So the first recipe, or the recipe I'm going to do in whole, is called roasty. And this is my take on a different way to do Chanukah. It's a giant latke. And today we've put it together with some lux and some flavored sour cream or yogurt that has some chives in it. So here we go. Now, we start with russet potatoes. So, russet potatoes can look like this or like this. This is what you're used to seeing as an Idaho russet potato, as a baked potato. They're both good. They're white. They're not too moist because you don't want too much water coming out, and they're not waxy. So, I have already, because you don't want to be sitting there watching me grate potatoes, so I've already grated most of the potatoes. It calls for about 1.5 pounds of potato, and believe it or not, what I've just shown you here is close to that. This is not a souffle or a sponge cake that you have to worry if it's a little bit too much this way or a little bit too much that way. Enjoy cooking. That's the most important thing to remember. So without grating my knuckles, I am going to finish grating one more potato. And you can do this in your Cuisinart on a grating blade. Don't use the finest hole size. Use about a medium or a larger size. And if you're using what we call a rebison or a grater like this, please watch your knuckles. You don't want to make this a fleishik dish unnecessarily. So that should do it. And put that there. My hands, by the way, are clean. If I were doing a demonstration where you would be eating a food that I'm making, I would be wearing gloves. But my hands are clean. I feel very confident that I'm not going to hurt anybody. My able-bodied videographer, my husband Fred, is going to be having this for dinner tonight. So I better make it good. So now I've taken a towel, the towel that I've grated it into, and can you hear that? Ring, 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 ring. There's lots of moisture in there. And you want to get that moisture out because, first of all, it'll spatter when you're frying it, as would any latke. And it won't get as crisp. So I wrung it and wrung it and wrung it. And now I'm going to empty it into the bowl. I'm also going to turn on the stove. Here's an 8-inch pan that I'm using. Now, some of you might prefer to use a cast iron pan, also is the 8-inch size. You do it exactly the same way. The one difference would be if you're trying to cut down a bit on the fat content of this roasty, and I could give you a whole lecture on why not enjoy it the way it's meant to be, but that's your choice. Then what you can do is when you flip it over, you can put it in the oven to finish the browning so that you've drained off some of the fat. And you can, again, when it comes out of any pan, drain it and a lot of the excess fat will come off. So we're going to put it onto a medium heat. And while that's heating up, we're going to add the rest of the ingredients. And according to your recipe that you have in front of you, we're going to put the wrung out. And don't do this too far in advance because more liquid will start coming out of the potatoes. So try to put it together right at the last minute. So in the pan, I've got a 1/4 cup of melted butter and a tablespoon of vegetable oil, and I use canola oil. If it's a fleishik dish, then use all oil. So I'm using the remaining 1/4 cup of butter goes in here, along with 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour and half a teaspoon of kosher salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Obviously, again, the seasoning can be to your taste. If you're trying to watch the salt in your diet, maybe you'll have a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. If you don't care for pepper, or you want more pepper, or you want a little cayenne, that's your choice. I'm just simply mixing it up. And did you know what's missing from here? No egg. So that's another either plus or minus, depending on what your dietary restrictions or interests are. So I'm combining all this together well. And once this is heated up, and you want the butter and oil to be bubbling just a little. I'm not going to turn the fan on because then you won't be able to hear me, but typically I would advise turning the fan on just to keep the house a little bit cleaner. So while we're waiting for the pan to clean up, in addition to perhaps as we put the Lux and the sour cream or yogurt on as a garnish on the roasty or the giant latke, if you want to call it that, you could turn it into a fleishik dish, making it with oil instead of butter, and putting some a brisket on top with a little bit of gravy, for example, or some chicken, shredded chicken, or side it with a very nice salad. So there's all kinds of different things you can do with it. You can make it as crispy or as soft as you want, but just make sure that it's cooked right through to the center. That's the most important thing. So now our butter is starting to bubble. And those of you lucky enough to have an induction cooktop or a gas cooktop, I'm jealous. We have it at our cottage, and that's why I really love cooking at the cottage, but I'm not complaining. Okay, now, very important, you press it down into the pan and try to get it as even as possible. Now, some of the butter will seep through, that's absolutely fine. Just know that it's nice and moist on the bottom. I am using a non-stick pan. You could probably use less butter in it if you wanted to, but the important thing for this is that you don't get it doesn't get stuck, or else you're in trouble. So that's as far as we've gotten so far, and you're going to be, I hope, pleasantly surprised when you see how easy it is to flip it out. While we're waiting for that to be done, I'm going to show you my take on a sweet potato latke. Now, these latkes are various shades of doneness, and I did that on purpose because some of us like them more well done, a little bit crisper. This particular recipe, and it's in your package, does have eggs in it. Don't move it. It does have eggs in it, and it's a little bit of flour. You can substitute, just as in the roasty recipe, you can substitute the flour for something gluten-free as well. It's just to suck up a little bit of that excess moisture. Sweet potatoes by nature are sweeter, and so that's why you get more caramelization, this browning of the sweet potato, but they're perfectly delicious. Darker black wouldn't be my preference, but these are crispy and dark brown, and that's the way our family likes it. If you don't care for it quite that crispy, then you can make it a little bit lighter. You can make them thinner or thicker. When I make ordinary latkes, potato latkes, I tend to be making them in very large batches. And as a result, I'm not sitting around either with my Cuisinart or with my hands grating potatoes. So I do what we call a batter. Everything goes into the Cuisinart with your stainless steel blade, and it comes out as a batter that you pour from a ladle into the frying pan. It's a different texture for sure, but it's much, to my way of thinking, it's a faster way of making large quantities of latkes. So we're serving the sweet potato latkes with applesauce. Again, it could be yogurt, it could be sour cream. Different families have different preferences. I suppose you could even, with the sweet potato, use a little bit of white horseradish if you want it, just to perk it up a little bit. Those are don't be afraid, experiment a little bit. So let's see how our roasty is coming along. You take a thin spatula, can you see that? And it's moving very nicely in the pan, but I want to see if it's getting brown underneath. And it's still got a little way to go. So we will now talk about, pardon my reach, Hanukkah cookies. And you've got the recipe. I will now turn my back on you, excuse me. You've got the recipe in your package. This is a basic sugar cookie recipe, and it makes lots. It makes probably 5 dozen. You can either roll the dough out after you've refrigerated it according to the recipe, or you can take a little, a tablespoon, and then just pat it down with the underside of a glass, flour the glass, and push it down. And then have fun. And this is a great activity with the grandchildren, whether you do it via Zoom or FaceTime. Give them all the ingredients. The dough, by the way, freezes raw, so you could send some down to their place, put on Zoom or FaceTime, give them a selection of toppings. So I found Hanukkah colors for sprinkles, or some mini M&Ms, or some non-perrier they call these, or even something like toffee chips. If you go to your favorite store, the bulk store that you use, and making sure that they're, of course, kosher, there's lots of options. And you can even take, once they're cooled, some chocolate sauce that you can drizzle on it. And President's Choice makes a fabulous chocolate ice cream sauce. So you wait till they've cooled for the chocolate sauce, and then you dip a fork into it, make sure it's a little bit warm, and then just drizzle it over. The other ones, the sprinkles, you press them into the raw dough. So they go into the oven with the raw dough. Okay, so let's see how we're doing. And even if this isn't completely done, what I want to tell you about, yeah, it's going to take a little while longer, but I'm going to tell you, pardon me, how you flip it. So when this is done, you would just watch how it's moving around on the pan. So it's a piece of cake as far as getting it out. You'd slip it onto this one plate, and then, so are you pretending with me? It's on the plate. Here's the roasty. You put another plate over it, holding it tight. 1, 2, 3, flip. Okay, and even if a little bit of the butter leaks out or something, that's not a problem. Take this off. Now you've got the brown side facing up, and easy as pie is slip it back in the pan and finish browning it. What could be easier? So we've covered a lot of territory. There will be questions, I'm sure, when we go to our Zoom, as we are now, but after we finish the video, and I'm happy to answer them. I wish all of you Chag Sameach, have a wonderful Hanukkah, and try some new things. Thank you, thank you. Hi, everybody. Any questions?
So I have a question from Hindi. How much fat for frying? I may have missed that. What is induction? I always thought it meant the ceramic stove top, but I'm not sure. Marcia.
Okay, so the amount of fat is in the recipe, and it starts off with a 1/4 cup of the melted butter and a tablespoon of vegetable oil. But if you're using all vegetable oil, you probably use about 3 tablespoons of the vegetable oil and omit the butter. What was the question about induction?
Induction. You mentioned something about induction. What is induction? I always thought it meant a ceramic stove top.
No, it's a special kind of stove top that uses a special kind of magnetic mechanism underneath it, and it heats up things very quickly, just like gas does. But as soon as you turn it off, it's cold again. So it's a safer thing, frankly, to use. But it looks like the glass cooktop because it's a smooth surface. You need pots and pans that will attract a magnet. So if you're thinking of investing in an induction cooktop, you might also be investing in new pots and pans.
I have another question. How do you fry thicker latkes and have them cooked on the inside and the outside, and make sure that the outside doesn't get overcooked?
Okay, slowly. So you start with, I would start with the oil a little bit hotter, just to sort of, if you were doing meat, you'd say sear it, but just to get it started. But then you're going to really have to baby them, because it does take, you're cooking potatoes. Potatoes take a while to cook. So you've got to cook it slowly on the first side, and don't be afraid to, sort of medium to medium high-ish, not too hot. And then watch them carefully. Then you flip them over. And the beauty of this is you can probably do it longer on the first side. If you overshoot the runway, so to speak, and it gets a little bit too dark, underdo the other side, and then you can decide which side you want to show when you're serving them. They won't be burnt, but you do want to make sure that they're cooked in the center.
Okay, no other questions at this time.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, and Chag Sameach.
Thank you, Marcia. That was wonderful.
Thank you, and I would now like to introduce Arlene, who's got a special treat for us.
Hi. Hi, everybody. I always make Hanukkah cookies with my kids every year, but this past year, one grandson has become gluten-free. So I thought to myself, what can I do? And I remembered the Rice Krispie squares that my boys liked when they were very young. And I thought about just making the mixture, but instead of putting 5 cups of Rice Krispies in the mixture, I put 4 cups. I know in the pamphlet it says 4.5, but 4 cups really works better. So I advise you to use the 4 cups. It's and then you just put it onto a cookie sheet. That the cookie sheet has to be greased. Then I put a piece of parchment. Then I put the mixture of the Rice Krispie mixture on it and another piece of parchment on top of that. Take my rolling pin and I roll it evenly right across the whole mixture. Then what I did was, I'll show you, I made a giant dreidel and decorated, and I used my cookie little pin, the dreidel ones, but you could also use Magen David. And this mixture is so easy to handle. You can handle it and even make a menorah just with your hands. You can shape it into a menorah. But I thought it would be fun to have one giant dreidel, and I cut a little I use the baby marshmallows, which is easier to melt, and I cut one in half for the eyes, and then I put a chocolate chip on top. And the way I glued it onto the cookie was I made a little bit of icing, so that would hold it on. And then for the mouth, I used just a red licorice. And I'm sure my kids will enjoy having this cookie. And it's something that's gluten-free, not gluten-free. Everybody likes them. They're not too sweet. And you can make up different ideas if you want to put the child, if you're good with writing with the icing tube and write their name on the dreidel.
I think we've lost her.
Okay. I think that Arlene's screen is frozen.
Or you could use Smarty, or Nation, and have fun. And
No questions right now about the Rice Krispie Hanukkah cookies. Go
Are there any
ahead.
other questions? No? Okay. I would thank you, Arlene. That was wonderful. And I would like to thank Marilyn Cohen, Marcia Rosen, Trudy Sassoon, my mom, Fran Kane, Arlene Silver, and the rest of my executive for a wonderful, wonderful program tonight. And if you'd like to enjoy additional Beth Tikvah Women programs, the cost is $36 for the year. And at the same time, you will become a member of Women's League. And Women's League have amazing educational programs, fun programs. I'm actually on a program every day that is, we're learning Pirkei Avot. And if you need to say Kaddish, there's about 86 women who stand and do the Kaddish. And it's a wonderful program. So please consider that, joining Beth Tikvah Women. We actually have a program next Tuesday evening, and that's with our region. And we're gonna have a fun evening, and it's called Zen Tangle. And it's a way of doodling and creating beautiful artwork. So if you'd like more information, You can email me and I'll try to put the email in the chat. And again, thank you very much for everyone for joining tonight. I'd like to thank my executive for helping plan this program. I'd like to thank Doris and Ricky for helping us get all the Zoom things ready for tonight and admitting everyone. And right now, everyone can bring out their Chanukiahs and show everyone your Chanukiah and wish everyone a happy Hanukkah. Do we have any additional questions for anyone?
Yes, we do. Where can we get the booklets? So perhaps people didn't realize there was a link. So you can explain, Adele, how they could click on the link and print out the booklet?
Okay, I'm actually going to put my, just one second. I'm going to put my email in the chat and you can send me an email. Just a minute. I realized I didn't even introduce myself, Adele Weinstein. Okay, adelew@rogers.com. And if you send me an email, I will send you the link to the Hanukkah recipe booklets. Oh, here it is. Thank you. I think that was Ricky who did that for us. There you go. All right, wonderful. So either you can get it on the chat right now, or you can send me an email and I will send you the link.